A few months ago, in a Skype cast far, far away. After credits. Episode 7, The Last Straw.
Having decimated the peaceful internet, the supreme leader... Guys, I'm gonna level with you here. This film is very polarizing and caused a huge rift in the fan base. It's gonna be a long one, and a long intro really isn't gonna play well here. As usual, you can go to patreon.com/evacstation to support the show, and we'd really appreciate it for all the hard work we do here on the podcast. We'd love to be able to do more with your help as well, so there's that to consider. Again, that's patreon.com/evacstation. All right, guys, cue the music.
Welcome to the After Credits Cast, the only podcast that wins by both fighting what we hate and saving what we love. We're just that damn good. We can do it all, baby. I'm your host.
Jedi. Sorry.
I'm your host, Aaron J. Wassess Snook, and with me today, I've got Rayan Metters.
I appreciate that. The hero we deserve, but she's the hero we need, but not the one we deserve. We surely don't deserve, right?
Yeah. So recently there's a release for the Frozen 2 trailer, and it has two different taglines in it. Answer the Call, which is the same tagline from Ghostbusters 2016, and the tagline Let Go of the Past or something like that, which is the tagline from this movie. And I saw Twitter with someone sharing that, and they're like, "Yep, this is gonna make all those SJW haters real pissed off." And I'm like, "Yeah, I could see Frozen 2 doing that."
Oh, all right.
That being said, the plot trailer for Frozen 2 looked pretty good.
I still haven't checked it out just yet.
It's good. It doesn't grab me as much as the El Camino trailer, but I'm also a big Breaking Bad fan, so I'm so goddamn hyped to check that out when it comes out on Netflix.
I also haven't checked that trailer out either, so I need to do that.
You don't need to see it. You just need to know it comes out on the 11th of October, so you've got, a couple weeks for us.
Oh,
so.
Damn. Yeah, that's not far at all. Jeez.
I will probably see that the weekend it comes out, because, I'm so excited.
Yeah. I there's a part of me that wants to do a rewatch, but I'm trying to see if Allegra will ever be into it. She's not a huge fan of drug shows, so I don't think I'll be able to, pull her into it, but I'm strongly considering a rewatch.
I'm glad I rewatched it recently with Amanda, because I wasn't expecting this movie to come out. I'm just like, hey, I really like this show. You haven't seen it yet? You want to give it a shot? She's like, sure. And, it timed out really well, so.
Fantastic, dude. Yep. That's awesome.
Speaking of timing out really well, we should probably get to those links real quick. Down below, if you guys want to follow us on various social media platforms, there's Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also find us on your various podcast platforms of choice. That includes Patreon, YouTube, Peepa, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podcast Addict. I know I said iTunes. It's Apple Podcasts. I don't care. Apple, sort your shit out. Sort your shit out. And what else was I going to say? And I want to say happy holidays, everybody. I don't know if this is coming out the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's. It's one of the two. I haven't timed it out just yet entirely, but happy holidays wherever you're at. Whoever you are.
Aww.
And with the, I almost forgot. If you want to send us your holiday wishes, or if you just want to talk to us about Star Wars, because that's what we're here to do today, Ryan, where can they send that stuff directly to us at?
You can send that to our email at the Sacred Jedi Text. Excuse me. evacstation@gmail.com.
Listen, guys, Luke was just getting his Christmas tree ready, and shit happened. Rey got her gifts too early and ran off with them. You know what? Teenagers. What are you gonna do? So let's get this segment going real quick with a quick round of what you watching. Ryan, what have you been watching?
I'll try to keep it quick. I know I sometimes go on too long.
No. Last week was just a fluke. It won't happen every time.
I actually managed to beat Sekiro with all 4 endings under my belt. So I feel very accomplished, and now I get to move on to other games and not touch that game for a good long while. Last but not least, Allegra actually got me into a K-drama, the very first K-drama that I've ever seen. It's called The Fiery Priest, and a quick synopsis is the protagonist is a priest with very bad anger issues, which would be hilarious all on its own, but it kind of amps into double gear when you realize that before he took his vows and became a priest, he was actually pretty much like Korean special ops. And so when this particular priest gets pissed at corruption and gangsters, he feels compelled to beat the shit out of them, which causes some trouble with local police, especially since they're all very corrupt and they try to hem him in with laws. But he's trying to figure out what to do against corruption if the answer isn't going to be his fist.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
It's real cool. It hooked me very quickly.
Sounds really good. What was it called again?
The Fiery Priest.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll have to give it a look-see. I've painted my volume here because it keeps adjusting because I mess with microphone settings. Definitely something I'm interested in check out. What's the best place I can watch it, or is it just like an online site you found?
It's an online site that Allegra put me onto. I'm pretty sure it's O Drama. It's O Drama Nice. OH Drama Nice. I'm pretty sure. Give me one hot second. I can confirm. On Drama Nice. So ON Drama Nice.ch.
Okay. With that, I'll do my bit real quick. So I've been doing a lot of catch-up, so I'm going to just list off a couple different things here. First off, I finished Supergirl, the newest season, and I'm ready to start the next one coming up, which for those of you listening, it's already out. For me, it's not out yet. I'm looking forward to the Crisis on Infinite Earths thing, so I'm getting prepped up for it. They've set it up. It's all ready to go. I'm hype. Let's do it. Let's do it, guys. We are now starting Supernatural Season 14. I know, there's 14 seasons. Who knew? No, we saw Mark Sheppard at the con, and it got me kind of hyped to check it out again. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. And then American Horror Story Apocalypse is finally on Netflix. The new season just came out in 1984. It looks really good. It's basically like the American Horror Story, but taking place at like a Camp Crystal Lake setting. So I really want to see that, but I'm going to watch this first and get myself up to it. But no, I got 2 seasons here that look really interesting, so I'm down to check it out. And last but certainly not least, Ryan, I told you I was playing Super Metroid. I beat it. And now I'm moving on to Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past.
Ooh.
Another SNES game that I never really got around to playing and or finishing. Here I am, boys. Let's have a shot at it. So yeah.
Well, you got to keep us abreast of that one.
I will. I have gotten the 3 charms or the 3 pendants, and now I'm working on getting the maidens in the Dark World. So yeah, not bad for a week.
Yeah, you've been catching up on a lot of stuff, man. Good on you.
Yep, and I've also started writing some more stuff too. I'm hoping to get this book finally done. I know I've been saying it for a while, but yeah, hopefully I'll get it done before I turn 30, or at least get the draft finished by 30, and then work to publish by the end of next year.
You got it, man. We believe in you.
That's the goal. With that, let's go ahead and move on to our next segment of the night, which is talking about this week's film. We are nearing the end of the 2017 season. Sorry, not 2017. I'm going to look at the movie year. The 2019 season with 2017's Last Jedi. A divisive film, to say the least. Written and directed by Rian Johnson, who I actually kind of like. He's got some good ideas. The film grossed a worldwide total of $1,332,000,000, which is about 4 times what it cost. This trade-off's getting worse, guys. Remember, Ryan, when it was like about a dozen times what it cost, and now we're like single digits?
Indeed. Yeah, I do.
For those listening, we're not saying this is a shot at Rian Johnson. Not at all. This is a shot at the gross, insane, overinflated budgets that Disney's thrown out there for these films. Guys, it doesn't need to be multiple hundreds of millions. Lucas did it so much cheaper, and while you can argue it's not as good, he did it cheaper, and the turnaround was way better.
You could also say it's a shot at the fan base, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, we'll talk about it. I know we have to. The cast includes many returning favorites, including Junice Suotamo, Billy Lord, Frank Oz, Benicio del Toro, Laura Dern, Kelly Marie Tran, Gwendolyn Christie, Anthony Daniels, you might have to remind me of this one, Domhnall Gleeson?
Domhnall,
sorry. Probably should just remember it's just one O, not two. Andy Serkis, Oscar Isaac, John Boyega, Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Mark Hamill, and the final outing, officially, of Carrie Fisher. She will, of course, be returning in Rise of the Skywalker in some way, shape, or form, which I'm interested in seeing. But for the most part, this is her last role still among us. And it's kind of sad to think about, just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to give her a fantastic send off in episode 9.
I hope so too, because she deserves so much for what the series, kind of brought her into, and she's one of the first women of film, if we're being honest here.
Yeah.
We got some awards, despite the reception. This movie did win awards for Best Actor, Best Editing, and Best Writing of the Academy of Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Horror Films. Best Actress, Best Costume Design, and Best Visual Effects, Best Director, and Best Film from the Empire Awards UK. 2 Golden Shows for the Best Action Sequence and the Best Movie Poster of the Year. John Williams got 2 more awards from the BMI Film and TV, and 3 Golden Spirit Awards. That's 4 awards.
Mm.
And finally, one I couldn't pass up, a final Teen Choice Award for Choice Movie Actress to in Fantasy to none other than Carrie Fisher.
I love it.
Wish I'd gotten some a little bit more magnanimous, but I had to put some in there for Carrie at the very least.
I'm a little interested in who they had as Best Actor. Best Actress, I'm assuming, is Daisy Ridley, but who did they tag for Best Actor?
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. That's interesting.
We can look that up later on.
Yeah.
But now we do have some fun facts for you guys. Carrie Fisher was also a well-known writer whose services were often called upon to act as a script doctor for other films. She later began declining such assignments when producers would solicit her story ideas, then hire someone else to actually change the script and use Fisher's ideas without paying her. Shocking. However, director Rian Johnson revealed that Fisher helped with the writing of the script for this film, giving credit where credit is absolutely due. Now, next up, Ewan McGregor expressed his interest to reprise his role as Obi-Wan Kenobi for the film. Rian Johnson wanted to include him, but couldn't find a place in the story to naturally insert the character. As much as I love Ewan McGregor, I'm so glad we got the Yoda appearance as opposed to him. So, we got you on Disney Plus, Ewan. We got you on Disney Plus. Last but not least, after reading the script for the film, Mark Hamill told writer-director Rian Johnson, "I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for my character." Surprising, every word you said in this script about Luke was wrong. Now, having said that and having it gotten off my chest, my job is now to take what you've created and do my best to realize your vision. Despite the ultimately divisive response amongst fans following the film's release, Hamill later said in a statement that he maintained respect for Johnson as well as Episode 8 and 9's director, J.J. Abrams. This is interesting to me. I want to unpackage that, but I want to save it for the deep discussion because I want to talk about Luke forever.
Oh, absolutely. I think this movie is very interesting, and I think the best parts of it, and people disagree with me on this one, but the best parts about it for me are the things tied to Luke and Rey. Like, without a doubt. They have a lot of good stuff going there. I do want to bring back to the Teen Choice Awards. So, like I said, Carrie Fisher won for Best Fantasy Actress, and then the Best Fantasy Actor, just for everyone's curiosity, was Anthony Gonzalez for Coco as Miguel.
Nice.
Yeah, he did pretty good. I'll give him that.
Oh, cool.
Let's get some overall thoughts on this one. So overall, I generally like what this film sets out to do. Having seen it again 2 years later, I can say there's a lot of blip to this film that, yeah, it might be a little unneeded. And the chase plot, to me, doesn't hold up as well as it could under scrutiny. And it's a shame because I think what Rian Johnson does outside of that, and with the characters and with the cinematography, is all really good stuff that Star Wars has needed for a while, I think. So there's a lot of good with a little bit of bad that will hold it back, and I know that's going to give people some ammunition, but we'll talk about it.
Okay. Initial thoughts. I really like that we're actually on the same page here. I think it's almost like you wrote my thoughts for me. I really appreciate the direction that they were trying to take the story. I like that it was trying to broaden the story to beyond like these key groups of players, this key storyline, and really making it apply to everybody. I definitely think there were some elements of the story that weren't needed, or at least like aspects of that they wanted to tell were needed to like do the story, but they were lengthened out in unnecessary and unusual ways, which I do think hurt the overall movie. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie at all. I mean, I still really, really love what it was trying to do. But you're right, the unnecessary bits definitely made it not stick the landing like it should.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about it here in our little synopsis. Ryan, are you ready for a synopsis?
I am ready, sir.
A little bit of a heads up. This movie is long with 3 intertwining storylines. I'm going to do my best to keep this kind of concise. Shortly after the events of Force Awakens, but not really told when, Rey trains with Luke while the Resistance flees from an attacking First Order. During this attack, Leia pulls a Mary Poppins with the Force, but is benched for a good chunk of the film. This allows Dr. Sattler to take command by not telling anyone her plan or listening to the advice of the most experienced pilots and fighters. This pushes Poe into forming some kind of plan with Finn and newly added Rose that involves somehow sending them away from the space chase race to get some guy from the planet Gamblor who can Game Shark his way onto the Worst Order ship to disable the tracker. Yeah, good luck with that. Meanwhile, Rey finds Luke is unwilling to be part of the Force, the Jedi, the whole story, basically, as he goes through something of a Logan-esque story arc. During this, she uses Force Skype chats with from Kylo Ren, but they didn't really friend each other at first. Little weird, little stalkery. While Luke reluctantly trains her, she learns that what really happened to Kylo isn't quite what she's been told. And she discovers that Luke isn't actually as perfect as the legends say he is. Don't meet your heroes, kids. That's a good lesson to learn. She leaves thinking she can change Kylo Ren. Luke, believing he is the last of the Jedi, goes to burn what's left of his order, but his texts are already stolen by Rey, and Yoda chides him for losing his way. Rey is taken aboard the big ship to meet Snoke. After some monologuing, he is cut down by Kylo Ren. An epic fight sequence happens. Kylo tries to tell Rey that to get rid of the past, the Jedi, the Sith, the Rebels, the franchise, the Lucas, but she can't let go of the fandom just yet, despite what Disney tells her to do. This is about the time when the other plot collides with the main plot. Literally. The heroes, minus Rey, gather on a nearby planet and call for help. No one answers the call. This isn't Ghostbusters, but the Second Empire arrives with another Death Star-like weapon because we need another one of those.
A mini one.
A little tiny one. The Resistance scrambles for some kind of counterattack, but have none. Luke arrives out of nowhere to face Kylo Ren with the Resistance, while the Resistance tries to find an escape, thanks to Rey. As it turns out, Luke is merely a distraction projected from across the galaxy. Using the last of his Force energy, he dies, having saved the Resistance, and his legend lives on.
Fantastic end. It was like say what you will about the movie, it ended very, very well.
I definitely like the third act a lot. I really wish people would give it a chance with that. I get the middle act isn't for everybody. I get it. But that last act is
the middle
solid.
act is not well executed. I'm just gonna go. I can call a spade a spade. I can just say it. The middle act is not well executed.
I'm gonna call a spade
There
a
are
shovel, but I get what you're saying.
that like there are interesting ideas that are floated in the second act, but that and the excuse me, the like the transition from the first act to the second act, it's not handled very well. It's not handled super well. The ideas discussed are really interesting, but the execution is not there.
No, there's definitely some issues. Do you want to dive into that specifically, or do you want to hit questions first? How do you want to dive into this one?
Okay, there's so much that I want to talk about. I have no idea where to start, so let's go with the questions, and we'll let your good planning carry us through.
Okay. So we'll go through questions, and at the end, if there's anything we have not covered that you wish to cover, we will do so. And if we run long, I don't care. I figured this one was going to be the longest one of the whole bunch, which, yeah, I'm prepared for it. First question, I think it's kind of the big thesis of the film. What are your thoughts on the idea of letting the past die? Should we let it die? Is Kylo Ren speaking to Rey, the audience, both? And how does the film play with this theme outside of just Kylo Ren?
Yes, that's the answer to this question. Yes.
I know, it's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, I personally agree with it, and I think it's really, really interesting that they chose to have this idea, this thesis, be uttered from the main villain, because it lends some credit to what he's saying. Ultimately, Kylo makes the wrong choice, but there's wisdom in what he's saying. There's it does us a disservice to cling too tightly to the past because we are hoping to relive some story when we can't go back. We have to go forward. I think that's a major thesis that the movie is trying to make across a lot of the storylines, not just Kylo, not just Rey, but also Luke as well, I would say. I feel like whereas Kylo forcefully discards the past and tries to learn nothing from it, Luke realizes that he can't go back, but he doesn't want to go forward because he feels like he failed, and he's just like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm never going to try that again, and we're just going to sit here and sit on my hands. And I think Rey ultimately comes to the heart of it, where you do have to move on from the past, but you have to use aspects and things that you've learned, lessons and wisdom from the past to forge a brighter future. You can't do it exactly the same as the past, but the past can inform your next steps. And it was a great, great thesis, and I'm really sad that they didn't follow through on it.
Yeah, the ending.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
No. I think it ties into this. I think you're right. So let me jump in, and then we can talk about how it failed to stick the landing on this one a little bit. So yes, I do see the message is definitely letting the past die, and I do think that this is more of a meta message than it is a narrative message. It's both still, but I think the message is definitely trying to target that Star Wars audience that's still so lovingly attached to the main trilogy, to the prequel trilogy in some cases, to the expanded universe and everything. The film's asking you as the audience to let go of this entire Star Wars canon. Everything's been established up to now. That's gone. It's over. It's done. We're in a new era. We're trying to evolve and change. It's no longer going to be about these legacies of heroes. It's no longer going to be about bloodlines. It's going to be about anyone can be a Force user, anyone can do this, etc., etc. The universe is bigger, more open, and by let go of the more narrow scope the original films had, we can open up to something bigger. But I don't think that trying to tell your audience that is a message that's going to come across as overly positive, because you're basically telling your fans, hey, the stuff you've liked before, it sucks, this stuff is new. Or at least that's how the extreme fans are going to translate it. And it's not right. It's not all the way wrong, but it's not right either.
I feel like that outlook though just completely disregards like the message of the movie. Like it's like taking a soundbite and completely taking it out of context. You know, like the concept of letting the past die doesn't mean completely forget everything that happened in the past. It doesn't mean what happened in the past was shit and we're just not going to do anything even resembling it. That's the way Kylo Ren would think.
Yep.
Where he's like, oh, well, everything about the Jedi was bullshit because Luke tried to kill me, so fuck him and fuck them and I'm done. Whereas I think what the movie and what the writers, what the directors are trying to say is that you have to move on. Like the past has to stay in the past. We can learn from it, but we're not going to try and replicate it because it's back there and we're moving forward. It's the juxtaposition of these two movies, of episode 7 and episode 8, are fantastic because you start out with a movie that from a wide angle is very, very similar to how the original trilogy started.
It's dripping in nostalgia. It's dripping in nostalgia.
It's nostalgia. It's definitely dripping in nostalgia. But if you're paying close attention, you're noticing the differences. You're noticing how it's not going to be like the last time. It may have the same starting point or a very similar starting point, but there's subtle differences that are pointing you towards the fact that it's not going to go the same way. And then this movie continues that thesis. It continues that thought experiment saying, look, what was in the past was in the past. And you have 3 characters that are stuck in the past. And how they move forward determines their courses in life. Rey, like Kylo, like completely discards the past and refuses to learn or grow from it. He's just stuck as that angsty teenager who Luke was standing over with his heart mired in darkness. Luke, upon making peace with the past and allowing it to be let go, is fully able to join the Force and actually do more for cementing his legend than he's done living. Especially because now he has I would be surprised if I didn't see Luke in episode 9.
Oh, of course.
Because because he has achieved immortality, and he told Kylo, "If you strike me down, I will be with you for the rest of your life, just like your father." It's just like he made his peace with it, and he let it go by letting himself go and realizing that he was a part of the past. And that it's time for new people to continue the story.
So there might be an argument that this message needs a bit more clarification for those in the back who may not fully be grasping it. So my hope is, in the next film, they don't repeat it, but they maybe echo it. Instead of it being just let go of the past, let it die, maybe the next film's theme can be something more like, instead of letting it die, maybe learning from it, growing from it, using the past as a guidepost to make the future better, something like that.
And this is what pisses me off, and this is what gets me, because I was with them after 8 came out. I was like, this is a fantastic message. Something brand new is about to be forged.
And then here comes Darth Sidious.
We are letting the past go, and from the shards of the past, we are forging something new, something better. We're learning from the mistakes. We're taking the wisdom of the past, and we're taking it into the future. It's going to be something brand new with brand new people who are untethered from the past, where it doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter who taught you. The story is here and now with this guy and this girl and the saga that they are writing right here and now. And what do? They name episode 9 Rise of Skywalker. All the work that we just did in saying the past legacies don't matter, you chose to end the new trilogy with the rise of the old name. What? What? I know the movie hasn't come out yet. But god damn it.
Well, okay, so the movie hasn't come out for us, but by the time this comes out, it will be out. So to clarify, these are our thoughts at the time These are our thoughts at the time of October. If the movie comes out and Ryan's assertions of what this movie is going to be about are entirely wrong, we will own up to it next episode. We certainly will.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I for one am praying that I'm proven wrong. I'm praying that they've pulled a massive trick on me. They hit me with the rope-a-dope, and it's actually the greatest movie ever. I'm really hoping so, because Episode 8 set me up for something really amazing to come out of Episode 9, for a strong finish. And the initial things that I'm hearing disregard what they just spent a whole movie setting up, and that made me angry. And it made me feel like they were capitulating to the loudest negative voices in the room. Are there problems with the movie? Yes.
Of course, yeah.
We can talk about that. But did they need to throw away this masterful, like, meta story that they've been building for 2 episodes? I surely don't think so. I surely think they were onto something amazing, and if they abandon it because of shitty press and fucking neckbeards, then I'm gonna be real mad. I'm gonna be real mad.
And here's the thing, I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're going to stick to their original plan, or at least a semblance of it. I can't imagine they're going to base their entire future of this massive brand on the loud voices that refuse to let the series change. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm thinking that we're going to get something different. It may not be like the big spectacular that I want to see, maybe, but it will definitely not be like retreading the same old shit. I don't think it will be.
I really hope, because I swear, like the smallest, like one of the smallest details that I absolutely loved is the fact that Rey and Kylo's like last meeting, like the last physical meeting, ended with Luke's lightsaber being torn in half. Like, I think that was so poetic, because you had Kylo, for all his ranting about letting the past die, is the one that's completely mired and ruled by the past. And on the other hand, you have Rey, who wants to honor the past but wants to move forward and grow healthily from it. And they split apart this legacy. And she ends up with 2 halves of his lightsaber. And instantly I thought, and from the remnants of the past, from the remnants of Luke's original lightsaber, she will forge her own new blade, probably a double-bladed lightsaber, because we've been hinting at the fact that she is primarily a staff wielder for 2 movies now. If she doesn't end up with a double-bladed lightsaber, that would be dumb. And if she uses the remnants of Luke's lightsaber to forge her new lightsaber, it's fucking... It's storytelling genius. It's gorgeous.
It would be nice to see a Jedi use a double-bladed lightsaber. We don't see it often. It was just the one guy from the dark side, and I want more. I want more of that.
But then the trailer hit, and she's just rocking his lightsaber. It's a trailer. We're doing this in October. You haven't seen the movie yet. I'm trying not to be overly mad.
For all we know, Ryan, that lightsaber could be fake. It could be like the Infinity Stones.
It could be like a dream. You know, it could be like her like dreaming of Luke's lightsaber. It could be whatever.
Oh, I'm being more literal. I mean, we've seen the Disney throw out fake trailers for the Infinity War film. Who's to say that some of the trailers we've seen don't have some misinformation to throw us off the trail?
Possibly, definitely, it's definitely possible.
And I gotta say, that's the way I'd rather have trailers go, because then it's like I don't know what to expect. I just get a tone. I get the characters doing cool shit. I get hyped for it.
I think the best way that the best trailers that I've seen were really from Mad Max, when it was this ridiculous sequence designed to hype you up, and then you go to the movie, and literally everything that you saw in the trailer happened within the first 15 minutes of the movie. And then the rest was completely new. I thought that was brilliant.
Okay, so let's move on to our next question because that was a long one. Here's another long one. Another theme that plays in this film is "Don't be a hero, preserve the light." Who embodies this theme the most? What does this mean? / what is the takeaway? And how does it play into the larger narrative of the film and even the franchise?
I think it's very interesting that they chose to pursue this particular theme, but it makes sense with where the Republic is at in this story, right? You know, it's not that they're at the peak of their power, driving back the forces of the First Order. Like, they're on the ropes, they're on the run, and I think it takes a more realistic look at war and tells a bigger story about how, if there is a more moral way to wage a war, then if there is, that's a big if. It's a big caveat. It's a big if. But if there is a right way to wage war, this would be it, because it's not out of destroying what we hate, but preserving what we love. That's how we're going to win. And that's how we're not going to lose ourselves to the things that we're fighting against. There's a lot of themes prevalent in, like, sacrificing yourself in order to win the battle. And that's a heroic thing. And sometimes that's all that you can do. Sometimes that's what's called for. But especially in a war, it's better to preserve the people, like to take the one loss where you can and to survive in order to continue the fight and ultimately win, because winning one battle is largely meaningless in a war unless it's like we're destroying the fucking Death Star. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So the concept of sticking around and being a leader as opposed to dying and being a hero, I think is great. And I think it speaks a lot to what you were talking about, Finn's possible storyline, because we talked about this last week where we were thinking about where Finn is going to go. I think they kind of did a test run of this story with, what's his name? The damn pilot.
Poe.
Yeah, Poe. Like, I think they did like a test run of this story with Poe, although they did not do that, right? But then they did it better and more condensed with Finn at the very end, because you see him, Finn started as this normal guy, and then he was known as a resistance hero, but he was still just largely concerned with the people around him. And then you see him kind of dipping into that darkness. It's just like, I have to destroy this thing. The First Order has taken far too much from us. I am going to stop this, even if it means my life. I have to get this done. And you see baby girl. What's her name? Baby girl.
Rose.
Yes, Rose. And then you see Rose kind of knock him out of that and showing him that. And this is where he actually starts to become a hero, where he starts to show leadership traits, where he's going on the same journey that Poe just did for the first half of the movie, pretty much. So I would argue it could be Poe or Finn, but I'm going to say Finn because Finn's arc was better executed.
Okay. So I'm looking at this situation, and I will say that I agree. I think Finn is kind of the star of this particular motif, the B story, as it were. And we could argue who's the B story, but let's be fair. Anything with Jedis is the A story. Anything without Jedis is the B story. That's how I'm going to play it.
To the chagrin of a lot of fans who really just dig the non-Jedi stories, and I understand, guys, I do, but it's the Force. It's Luke Skywalker. we got to get training montages. That's the story there.
Indeed. So in the B story, this is the theme, and Finn's the main de facto plot driver of that theme. I will say, execution-wise, I didn't quite like the last bit of it where Rose intervenes the attack and stops the sacrifice and all that stuff. I like that part to an extent, but I didn't like how it's like, we say what we love and then they make out on the battlefield. It's like, okay, guys, this is a little absurd. This is fucking cinema bullshit 101.
Well, granted, she kissed him before fucking fainting. It wasn't like, oh, well, let's make out now.
I'm exaggerating for effect. I know, but still, it's like, I get it. The whole love motif thing, I get it. But like, guys, there's a big death cannon right next to you, and a bunch of walkers coming your way. Probably
that was gratuitous. I would give you that was gratuitous. That was.
That's definitely cinema porn at its finest.
It's like we have to insert some romance here. Never mind the fact that there's been no real romantic tension between the two of them. Like,
nope.
Kind of, but not really.
I'm not blaming the actress for Rose.
Absolutely not. She was fine. Damn.
Kelly, get back on Tumblr and Twitter. Everyone's an asshole. You're cool. No one's gonna hate you here. But definitely the setup for that sequence was not the best. But the idea behind it, I was okay with. I was good with.
I really like the whole like side mission, like in fucking where the movie becomes James Bond was weird. But
yeah.
I think the main thesis of that part of the story was showing how Rose has had one of the darkest storylines ever, and she's still a very sunny person who's committed to saving things and not destroying things. I feel like that whole section of the movie is really an attempt to put Rose in the spotlight and contrast her to what Finn has gone through. Finn's definitely gone through horrible things, but she's the proof that you can go through horrible things and not lose yourself. And I think that really puts into focus what she's saying at the end.
But I think, here's the problem I'm having with it, and you can agree, disagree, it's fine. But
yeah.
I think the movie already has too many things it's trying to juggle to include more, like, backstories and more meaningful side tangents, like the whole, like, gray logic between the sides of the war and everything. Like, all that's really good, and in a separate film about those things, it could be very interesting.
True.
But we're juggling so many different themes and motifs and ideas, and you only have so much runtime, and we're already not answering enough of the questions. We need to cut some of this down and maybe save this for, like, an extra side movie or a mini-series on Disney+. This is a little too much to juggle at once.
Yeah, the whole gray morality of war, and, like, war is a big machine. It's just like, oh, well, like, you have these horrible arms dealers that are selling weapons to the Empire, but also selling weapons to the Rebellion. You see, kid, it's all a scam. You just have to look out for yourself. I don't think that was really necessary. I think it was an interesting point, but like you said, it's another theme on top of a lot that we're already doing. I would have lost that, and I would have stripped a good portion of Poe's storyline.
Yep.
At least Poe's initial storyline, because you have him as the rash hero who wants to go and blow stuff up, and he has to learn that that's not always the answer. Okay, that's fine. You have him then learn that towards the beginning of the third arc, where it's just like, we have to survive to get to this planet. We have to save as many lives as we can. The emphasis is not on fighting back because we can't fight back right now. Our victory lies in our survival so that we can set up, regroup, and come back stronger. He learns that, and that's fantastic. The whole second arc with him and this mutiny nonsense, what? Just throw that whole thing out. It's drama for the sake of drama. It's manufactured tension, and it was unnecessary.
Well, okay, so remember the great immorality of war for the next question. But before we get to that, I want to just dive into this big plot hole of a hole. So let's talk about the Poe story, the Laura Dern
Let's
character.
do it, man. Let's do it, because what the fuck? Why?
So let's break it down for everybody. So in the film, after Leia has her little explosion, she's out of commission, and Laura Dern's character, who's Holdo, I think.
Yeah.
She takes over as commander for a short term, and doesn't tell anyone her plans, doesn't inform anyone what's going on, and there's rumors there's a mole in there, but that plot thread's dropped kind of quick, or just kind of shoved off to the side after a while.
Was there even like mention of a possible leak?
There's a lot
Was
of
there?
There's a lot of like subterfuge and a lot of
because I missed that.
so there's a lot of ideas being thrown around for that particular like set of problems, and none of them really get fleshed out enough to mean anything. Like, we don't know about the mole, or if there even is one. We don't understand why she makes the decisions she does. We don't understand what we're supposed to take away from any of this. And then she ends up sacrificing herself to be the big hero, which kind of contradicts the don't be a hero, preserve the light message we discussed earlier. But hey, who cares? We got a cool high-speed, light-speed crash thing. It's fine.
Okay, so I'll say her sacrifice made sense because it was done to preserve the remains of the fleet. Remember, her initial plan was to just lead them away while they dock safely, but they were found out, and so she had to sacrifice herself. Like the concept was always her sacrificing herself so that the rest of the fleet could escape. But since the plan was kaput, she had to do it in a much more flashy way.
Okay, but then I do have another question now. So the plan was for everyone to get on escape pods and leave. And while it wasn't communicated to everyone up front, that was the plan. I'm gonna bring that up because as the leader, she should be able to tell her people, or at least the most trusted people, what the situation is. Anyway,
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I mean, that's the biggest plot hole to me personally, because if Poe, hold on one second.
Yep.
Shut up.
So, folks, while we're waiting for that to go by, you should go to patreon.com/evacstation to support our show and get future episodes released early. You can talk to us directly. It's all sorts of fun stuff. Patreon.com/evacstation. Let's see if Ryan's back from his ambulance nonsense.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just had a quick jaunt in that ambulance, but now I'm here because I got to finish up this podcast. All right. So, what I was saying, if Poe's initial resistance was, no, we can't just flee, we have to fight, we have to fight, we have to fight, I'd say, okay, this is valid. Because if she had initially said that we're going to lead them on a merry chase and then you guys are going to get to this fortified bunker while I lead them off, he'd have been like, no, that's bullshit, we can't run away like cowards, that would have made sense. But that wasn't what he was yelling about. He was like, what's the plan? Like, what actually is the plan?
Which is a valid concern.
Do we have a plan?
It's
and
a
those are
concern.
valid questions. And like it's made even worse by the fact that when Leia actually tells him the plan, he's like, that's a good plan. That could work. That makes sense. And it's almost like we had 40 minutes of forced conflict for no fucking reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because had you said this 40 minutes ago, I'd have been like, cool, yeah, all right, let's do that.
And
but no.
And this leads me to my other concerns here. So the plan was to send escape pods away from the ship and then for her to distract them. How would no one not see those escape vessels getting away?
So my understanding of it is that they're not tracking them in visual range, but rather with like the tracker that they've got like on the larger craft. But the radar that they're using can't detect the smaller craft.
Yeah,
so
but all it takes is someone to look out the window.
I don't know, man. It's space, and they're actually fairly far away. Like it's not like they're right up on their ballast. You know, they're maybe. It is fairly far away, and they are fairly small cruisers.
Maybe, but then that brings me to another question, and I guess it's going to be a similar answer, but doesn't it seem kind of weird that in this entire, like, space pursuit, where you have this big, fleet of ships chasing the Resistance, that the B-plot with Finn and Rose can just wander off from this chase, get their side mission done, and come back, and everything's still kind of where it left off?
Yep.
I remember watching this, and my first thought, I'm like, oh, that's weird, but whatever, this is gonna look cool. Coming back to it now, I'm like, yeah, no, this is still stupid and weird. I don't get how this is even possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think the entirety of the second act is expanded simply to give them reasoning to give us Rose's backstory and for it to make sense within the context of the film and the story, the message that they're trying to give. And I understand why they wanted that, because that's a good point and that's not only a very interesting story for her, but it's a very interesting foil to what Finn's going through. Their stories juxtapose each other nicely. That I'm not mad at. But the fact that you had to extend a solid third of this movie is simply fluff for you to try and reach those story points. There should have been ways to be able to tell that story better.
I feel like this is Rian Johnson flexing his creative writing muscles, and for the record, he does good work. But this is not the time or place to show off this stuff. Save it for when you have your own trilogy, because I'm looking forward to that. I really want to see what you do when you have full range of everything. Here it just doesn't fit. It just feels weird.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't necessarily really showing off, because it's like it would have been showing off if he was able to do it and fit it into the narrative flawlessly. I mean, then I'd be like, yes, this dude is on it.
I mean, showing off as in like he's trying to insert a lot of like deep, meaningful stuff and trying to get it to work, but it's not quite working. It still looks cool. It still comes off interesting. But when you try to put it in with the context of everything else surrounding it, it just feels like it's too much stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the story that he told with Finn and Rose. I do. I don't know how you hit those same notes without all this extra stuff, but there's so much extra that I feel like there should be a way. There's got to be a way to tell the story and do it more concisely than they did.
Now,
because the middle third of this is filler. The middle third of this movie, with the exception of Rey and Luke having these big conversations on morality and what it means, why the Jedi Order needs to end, and what exactly is the nature of the Force, the light side and the dark. It's just those are good. That's good shit you want to be in on. But the rest of the second act is just
So thank you. You bringing it around to my next question. I do appreciate that. I don't know if that was intentional. I'll assume it is.
Yes, sure.
Sure. So, like I mentioned before, we talked about the whole gray morality of war. The next question kind of ties into that a little bit, but it focuses on the A-plot. Luke appears to have adopted a new philosophy of the Force, which aims to more of a balance between light and dark. This is a similar line of thinking to something shared by Ahsoka Tano, who was kind of disheartened by the ways of the Jedi, due to them not having her back when she needed them. What do you make of the gray Jedi concept, and do you feel the choices of Luke and Ahsoka were valid? Do you feel the Jedi are being over-criticized? What arguments exist to not embrace the dark side, but to live with balance instead?
All right. So, I appreciate the concept of emphasizing the balance over emphasizing light and dark. I believe that the difference is that where Ahsoka decided to fight for the balance, Luke chose to remove himself in order, believing that light and dark are always going to be balanced out. And that it's him trying to do things that imbalanced it. So he stepped back. Like you see, it was his desire to create a brand new Jedi Order as he thinks of it, and his failings as a teacher that caused him to lose his nephew, for Leia to lose her son, and for essentially the resurgence of the dark side and the Empire. He feels like his attempting to meddle with it fucked everything up, so he had to step back. I believe the correct way to go about it is to strive for balance, but also to accept the fact that there are going to be forces that try to imbalance it. There are going to be champions of the dark that are trying to make darkness all there is. And so there needs to be a counterweight to that. If the Jedi exist as a balancing act to keep things on an even plane, I think that's the ideal state. Because I feel like where the Jedi Order of old failed is thinking that it could completely snuff out the dark, which is not balance. You know what I mean?
Yep. So I'm going to give a fair warning to everybody who does not like things getting political, but I'm going to insert politics into this, so just...
Warning.
Hold on to your hats, boys and girls. So I think this is a loose political message.
Okay.
I think Star Wars has always been a loose political message, but I think here you can kind of see it being a little bit more overt, where light and dark represent the right and the left, the liberal versus the conservative, and it doesn't matter which side's which, guys.
The First Order are literally fascists. They're actually fucking fascist, guys.
But in terms of at least the Sith and the Jedi, like I'm not gonna label who's who. Your point of view can skew whichever way you want. It's not the point. The point is, you have two polarizing sides who are constantly going back and forth, upsetting the balance, causing chaos, making instability happen. If you look at the political spectrum of our world, for example, we swing back and forth from the Democratic-run government to a conservative-run government, at least here in the States. And it's chaos. When you go back and forth, things lose stability for a bit, things are kind of in turmoil, and then things kind of balance out a bit before we switch it all over again. This happens a lot, especially recently, when we keep going back and forth between the party system, etc., etc. And I'm looking at this as, from our arguably centrist kind of view, where it's not so much the extremes that give us the answers we're looking for, but a balance of the extremes and willing to kind of find compromise between them that gives us what we ultimately want to see, which is a balance within this polarizing system, whether it be your political system, the Jedi Force system, etc. And that's kind of how I look at it. And I think that that's kind of what it is. And as for how Luke approaches that situation, because I'm not going to talk about Ahsoka too much. I read about it a little bit, but unfortunately I'm not as versed with her story. I just know that she becomes a badass warrior after her leaving the Jedi, and it's very interesting, her reuniting with Anakin, but that's a whole other conversation. Anyway, with Luke's storyline, he definitely feels like the jaded voter who he voted enough times and realized, oh, the stuff I'm voting for isn't getting things done. I'm just pulling myself away from the system completely. And that's a valid argument because, yeah, you could definitely feel burned by the system that, despite your best efforts and your best pushes to make things happen, it blows up in your face. It doesn't change. What you want to see doesn't happen. A corrupt system, a system that doesn't listen, that's going to result in that kind of thing. And I think the lesson to take from this, or the takeaway from this in general, is that you shouldn't completely remove yourself from the system, but instead find a different way to make change, because you have to be there for the next generation to engage with this system and put their spin, their change on it. And I think the fact that Luke was willing to be there to teach Rey kind of helps push that message a bit. I might be a bit off. I might be a little insert myself into it a bit, but that's kind of what I looked at it as.
You know, it's interesting your view on it, and I'm going to say something hyper like I'm going to say something like super out there, but just roll with me. If I'm sticking to your political analogy here, I would instead see Luke as a Trump voter. He
Ooh.
went hard into something that he thought was going to be best for him, for everyone involved. And upon achieving it, he made mistakes, and it led to catastrophe happening. It's not necessarily that he was trying to change the system and failed. He successfully changed the system, but the change that he made didn't get the results that he wanted. And so, dejected, he left, resolving just to not fuck anything else up.
What's spooky about that is I know Mark Hamill is, like, very vocal about how Trump is an asshole. So no one pass this message on to Mark Hamill. We don't want him to think that we think...
I don't see him as a Trump voter. I'm just going on your analogy here.
I just don't want him to feel insulted, that's all.
Hey, Mr. Hamill, there's no disrespect intended. Like, I completely agree with you and your stances in the political sphere. We're just making a point here.
But no, I definitely think that that's a part of what's happening here. I don't think you're off with what you're saying. Yeah.
And still, I believe I think it all kind of goes back to the general, like, thesis of what to do with the past that this movie is hovering around. Because Luke was going forward, putting his best foot forward and trying to pass on what he learned, but he failed. He messed up. He got a little enraptured with his own legend, and he fucked it up. But rather than learning from that failure and then continuing to move on, he stepped back because he was afraid to move forward. He was afraid to continue on and possibly mess up again. He's like, how can I think that I'm changing the galaxy for the best when my meddling caused my sister's only son to go dark? He views that entirely as his fault. And was it a mistake on his part? Absolutely. But this is the best thing that I love about Yoda's steps in, like, Yoda's appearance in the story, and ultimately why I really, really like what they did with Luke, because they gave Luke the chance for character growth. They didn't just set him on this pedestal and then let him exist as the Grand Master. You come to me and I'm going to impart the wisdom of ages upon you, and you will become fucking Jedi Knight Supreme after you leave my island. No, they actually had him grow. Because he was stuck. He was stuck after a failure. And yes, he was imparting teachings and imparting wisdom, but he was also stuck. He was also held back. And it took Yoda coming back from the dead to say, sit down. Let me lay some more wisdom on you. Because I taught you what it was to be a knight, but I didn't get to teach you what it was to be a teacher. And this is one of the big things that you have to come to grips with. You're going to fail. You're not perfect. But passing on those failures is also important, because we learn more than 10 times from, like, the amount from failure than we do from success. Don't let failure stop you.
I can agree to that. I've been in many relationships that didn't work out. I learned the best from those.
And it's personally, it's a lesson that I've really struggled with, because I personally am afraid of failing to the point where it stops me from moving forward in ways that I should, because I'm worried about fucking it up, and I'm worried about doing something that I can't come back from. So that particular message really hit home with me. Like, just sitting there, even as this old, like grizzled Jedi master who can do, like, crazy shit with the Force, he still needed to be sat down and taught. As much as Mark Hamill disagreed with the choices that they made for Luke, I think it's a better story this way.
Well, and to go on your point about the whole learning from failure thing, I'm going to do a slight tangent here, but I think it's a great lesson to learn. For me, it's something I picked up strongest from the game series Dark Souls. You learn a lot from your failures. You learn why you failed. The game's fair in showing you where you messed up, in most cases. and it's easy to pick back up and try again. It's a message that says, yes, failure sucks, it's hard, but you'll learn from it, you'll grow from it, and the best part is you just pick yourself right back up and go at it again.
Yes, and as someone who died to the final boss of Sekiro like fucking 20 times, I can absolutely attest to this. Failure is built into From Software's games, but it's also one of the best ways to learn. And I felt so accomplished after being able to like do this complicated dance with the final boss and like have this epic battle with him as I like dodged like crazy ass attacks. You definitely learn from failure. And I like that Luke not only had suffered failure, but also we got to see him learn from it. And now it consequently sets him up to be like the Grand Master in Episode 9. Because now he's so much wiser than he was in life. And now that he's achieved this peace, this balance, this equilibrium, he can truly pass on what he's learned as Yoda instructed him to do. I'm very excited to see him in Episode 9. I really can't wait.
I'm excited to see how the Force goes. Luke, Yoda, Obi-Wan, hopefully. We'll probably see Anakin. I would be surprised if we don't. But I'm excited. It'll be good. Moving on, before we get too diverted. Okay, so much like The Force Awakens, Last Jedi takes a lot of building blocks from Empire Strikes Back. However, unlike Abrams, Rian Johnson subverted fan expectations at almost every turn. Was this a good decision, or was it subversion for subversion's sake?
I think, as a whole, it's a good decision because it continues the trend from Episode 7, where it started out with very, very similar premises, but it started to diverge from it. And I feel like Episode 8 just continues that trend. Like, we have similar situations, but things are happening differently here. You know, like the rebellion's in dire straits, and our heroes are constantly being chased and plagued, and Rey is off trying to learn the secrets of this spooky ass magical power from the oldest living Jedi Master alive, and it's going to be great. But the teacher is reluctant. He thinks the Jedi need to end, and he's going to argue with you as to why he doesn't want to teach you and why the teachings that were passed down to him were flawed. And so, it's like, oh, well, that's a different story. That's more interesting because you think you know how it's going to go. Like, she ends Episode 7, she found the Master, she holds out his old lightsaber, and you're like, okay, it's time to train. The training will begin. And the first thing you see him, fucking throws the lightsaber away. Like, get out of here with that bullshit. I'm not doing that. No. Think I ran away for no reason? It's automatically more interesting because you think you know how it's going to go, and then it doesn't. And all of a sudden you're like, well, what else is different? Why is it different? What are you trying to tell us with the change in this story? So I think, with the exception of the second act, like we've already gone on in depth about, I think the subversion in the story was a really good decision because it continues the film's main themes. What I would argue is the main theme of this new saga. The fact that like what to do with the past. How the past, like we say that the past repeats itself, and it's true that we come into similar situations, but people who don't learn from the past are absolutely doomed to repeat it. Where what you should do, you should take the past, you should learn from it, you should put it aside, and you should use it to forge a better future.
I would say I mostly think that the subversion works here. I think there's a few instances, for sure, that, yeah, they might have gone a little far with it. Probably mostly middle act stuff, like we just discussed. But I've seen examples of films, and I've seen people use examples from this movie as well, where subversion's used more as a joke to instead of trying to make a point. Like, a lot of people think that the lightsaber being thrown off the cliffside is more played off as a joke than it actually is a meaningful gesture. And I don't know if I agree with that or not, but I definitely do kind of see what they're trying to get at. Again, not necessarily agreeing, but I can kind of see how someone's reading it and they know the Marvel formula, they know the Disney formula in general, they know that they insert jokes to break tension and whatnot. So I can kind of see if people would read this more as a joke. I don't fully see it that way, but I understand where those people are coming from.
I mean, to those people, I would say, have you forgotten how Yoda was introduced in Empire? Like,
yeah,
Yoda was a silly ass puppet that we thought was just this weird hermit in the woods, just constantly trying to take Luke's shit and just bugging the shit out of him. It started off with a subversion. It's not like we haven't explored the concept of like the old master being kind of nuts and being kind of ridiculous. We've done it. It's just Luke has a different spin on it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why that would be bad. When Yoda did it, goofier.
I just have to throw the straw man arguments in there because I know people are out there who want to talk to us about it, and you know, good on you guys. Comments are down below. We'll maybe answer them.
Please comment. We love talking about this stuff, and like I have strong feelings about the movie because Star Wars is my shit, and it's one of my most beloved stories. That being said, I am absolutely willing to engage in discourse with any of you guys. Please don't think it's going to be like an argument where I'm going to tell you, oh, you're wrong because no. No. If you have an opinion that's different from mine, we absolutely want to hear it. So please comment below.
And of course, we do ask you keep it civil. You know, no getting all personal attacks here because this is supposed to be about fun and having a discussion about Star Wars, not about whose mama is so fat that they yada yada yada.
My man. Yo mama jokes.
Just saying. Keep it clean. Keep it clean.
Yes.
Okay, got a couple more here. The film argues for a radical change within the Star Wars universe. Do you think this film succeeds in making such a radical change? Why or why not? Should Rey have joined Kylo? What could have happened if she did?
I don't think there was ever a chance of Rey really joining Kylo. I think the temptation was there. I definitely think the temptation was there. But I think ultimately Rey thinks of her friends more than herself, which is where her and Kylo are completely opposite. And so I don't think there was ever really a chance of her like giving up. I think there was a possibility of Ben being turned, but I also like that they didn't. I also love that they didn't, really. So while it argues for radical change, I think they ultimately landed in a similar place as the paths that were tread, because you still have the light and the dark. You had the two sides both considering turning their coat, but ultimately the sides have been set. Like they know there's no converting the other one, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be. Mm-hmm. So I think the discussion of change was fantastic, because rather than go through the tried and true formula and like have it turn out exactly how it was, they subverted it. They're like, well, both of them are actually looking at the possibility of doing it, and at the end they both settle on their own sides, but it feels more solid. It feels like the characters have genuinely chosen where they are. Like they had a good look at the other side and strongly considered it, and it reinforced their convictions on their sides. So I think we have a stronger end game setup. I think the board is now set, and it's stronger on where they are, knowing that they both considered doing the other thing and both ultimately decided to stick to what was true.
I agree with that for the most part. I definitely think that the film does push for change, and you could argue that the status quo is maintained with the whole conflict of the good versus evil, especially with the fight, the distance between Rey and Kylo Ren. Sorry, got my names mixed up there. At the end of that fight, you hear him proposing to her, let go of the past, join me, etc., etc. Very reminiscent to Darth Vader, but the ways he's inviting her are different. Rather than simply being like, oh, we could rule the galaxy, even though he does drop that line. His whole motif is, hey, all this other shit, this war, the Jedi, the First Order, fuck it all, let's move on, let's make our own world, our own destiny here. And the arguments I've seen, and I do genuinely see where it's coming from, is that Rey, instead of letting go of the past, embraces the past and arguably pushes for the status quo more. I don't know if I don't agree that's exactly what she's doing, but I can definitely see where that argument's coming from, especially if you aren't a fan of the changes being attempted. No, I could definitely see that, and one could argue that the film didn't really change, but I think that the groundwork for realistic change is around the corner.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can see how it would look like nothing changed. I can see how it would look like nothing changed. And that, I think ultimately the directors and the writers are going for a much more subtle style of storytelling with this saga than people were possibly expecting, which I personally love, but I can see a lot of people that don't really dive deep into movies just seeing it for its outward appearance be like, nothing changed, nothing happened, they're both like she's still light, he's still dark, they're still gonna fight it out, and I'm like, but like the fact that both of them strongly considered it, that like there were moments where you didn't know who was going to turn, is massive. Like it was done in Return of the Jedi because Luke was tempted, and then Vader was ultimately tempted and converted. Sure. But I think there's also weight in the fact that we pretty much recreated that situation, and Kylo ultimately decided to not change. Like he couldn't do it. And while you could argue that it's Rey who can't let go of the past, I feel ultimately it's Kylo who is ruled by the past. He's so afraid of approaching anything similar to what he had before the darkness that it informs his every movement. And so he kind of like, I feel like both of them are engaged with the past, but whereas Kylo refuses to change because of it, I feel like Rey is using the past to change the future, if that makes sense.
I can see where you're coming from on that one. I'd love to discuss this with you because I was researching these questions. I was trying to get good questions for this, and I binge watch a lot of wisecrack stuff and a lot of how it should have ended stuff, or not how it ended, but everything wrong with, just to kind of get a feel for what the general tone out there is from everybody. Mm-hmm. And I love that you were countering a lot of their arguments pretty handily. I really like where this is going. This is a very fun conversation.
Yay! Almost feel professional. Shit.
I've got two more here, and then we can open the floor for anything we missed, and then we can get on to the review. Number one. Is it fair to say, as a meta commentary, that the relationship between Kylo Ren and Darth Vader represents the relationship between new Star Wars and original Star Wars? And what would this seem to imply?
Ooh, shit. Okay. Hold on. That's deep. That's.
I've done my research. I found some fun stuff.
You're like I can't say that you're wrong on that commentary. I can say this definitely applies to some of the fandom, and not in a great way.
So the idea behind it, I could break it down because you've been talking a bit. I'll insert myself a bit here. Darth Vader, main villain of the previous trilogy. Kylo Ren, seemingly the main villain of this trilogy. But there's constant reminders over and over again that you are not Darth Vader. Remove that silly little mask you've got on. There's this constant.
I love that Snoke fucking said that. Like, take that ridiculous thing off your face. What are you doing? I love it.
despite it, though, you can see there's a shadow of Darth Vader looming over him. Darth Vader's obviously dead. He's not intending to be looming over Kylo Ren like that. But for Kylo Ren, this is all from his perspective. This is what he's feeling. He feels like Darth Vader is watching over him and just kind of looming over him. And everyone is comparing him to Darth Vader. And the fans are comparing him to Darth Vader. And that's not unfair because it's another Star Wars villain. You're gonna compare them. That's just how the nature of villains in the same franchise go. Yeah. So yeah, I could definitely see that this is a representation of that relationship, i.e. he is a shadow of what the villains before were. And we discussed that last week a little bit, too, where he isn't Darth Vader level in terms of what he brings to the table. He's not imposing. He's not terrifying. He's something else entirely. But I think it's also kind of implies a message to a generational gap a little bit. Like, I would say that Kylo Ren maybe represents our generation, Ryan, the millennial generation, maybe even younger, but I'm going to say millennial for this one. And you could argue there's a bit of a shadow over us of what generations before us have done. You know, they've saved the world from Nazis, they have done all sorts of these amazing things throughout history, invented great things, done great things. And you could argue that nowadays they aren't as great because of, you know, Trump and whatnot, but that's a different discussion. But going off the past, they've done some amazing things. And our generation, I feel, has yet to have a moment that defines what our generation is really about. And you could argue that that might be where we fall in this a little bit. We are like Kylo Ren. We haven't really found what our purpose, our role, our motive, our goal to be here is. We're just here trying to fill a role we were thought to, that was thrown upon us, and now we're just kind of rolling with it and trying to make it the best we can. So, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm reading this a little bit. What do you think?
I like that. I like that a lot. I think the writers do something really, really, really clever with Kylo Ren's story, because they set him up, this is the next Darth Vader, but you learn he's not. He's not the next Darth Vader. He's not that good. And it's the fact that he's aware he's not that good that presses on him, and it's like the weight of what he's trying to live up to, and in his eyes is failing to live up to, that's really hampering his growth. You can take the analogy a step further when you see that it's an older person from that generation that's using the myth of what you're supposed to live up to keep the younger generation down, when it's possible that you're not supposed to be the next Darth Vader. You're not supposed to do what the people before you did. You're supposed to do your own thing. You're supposed to forge your own path. And so it's that's a very interesting commentary, a very interesting analogy that you bring up, because it has a lot of parallels, especially when you bring Snoke into the mix.
Mm-hmm. And it kind of reminds me, and I'm going to tangent again, I like tangenting when I can relate stuff to it, but so there's a biography I read way back in the day from Jackie Chan, and one thing that people always asked him, always questioned him about was, are you going to be the next Bruce Lee? We all know he was never going to be the next Bruce Lee, in hindsight, of course, and even he, back in the day, said, no, I can never be the next Bruce Lee, no one really can, I'm going to be Jackie Chan, and that's kind of how that goes. And I think that's largely what Kylo Ren is going to have to learn, or he's going to die trying.
I feel like that's kind of the point that he reaches at the end, but it's still heavily shadowed over his past. Because, I mean, like, him killing Snoke was a great stride forward in, like, forging his own thing. But I think ultimately he's still too ruled by the past to really, to really forge his own destiny.
If we find out Force Ghosts are pulling some strings here, like Darth Sidious, for example, we might be able to see just how far this goes, but I'm very curious to see how it plays out.
In all honesty, like, I'm hoping, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned it a little. I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in our podcast or two ago. But the concept of evil Force ghosts trying to like I think it would be interesting if we saw the good Force ghosts like Luke and Anakin visiting Ben trying to save him, whereas the Force ghosts of evil, sinister folk like Sidious kind of write Ben off. Like, he's not the next guy, he's not the bet, and they're trying to get the young, ridiculously powerful new Jedi in Rey. So I think
there, honey, you want to join the dark side?
Yes.
I got a couch over here, we can talk about it.
I can feel your anger.
Get a little Harvey Weinstein in here. I'm going to move away from this.
Yeah, let's step away. Step away from that.
Got an audition
this red
for
double-bladed
you.
lightsaber right here with your name on it. It looks like a fork. Anyway.
Okay, last question here. I skipped one earlier, but I feel like we don't need to talk about it. I think this is where I want to end it here for questions, and then we can open the floor. Ultimately, where do you think the divisiveness of this film comes from, and how would you have gone about resolving it? And as a challenge, don't put blame on the fan base. Just think of the film, think of where the decisions are made. What in the film itself do you think you could have altered to reduce the divisiveness of the reception from the fan base?
Well, see, that's hard because you say don't blame the fan base for the divisiveness, but this is where the divisiveness ultimately comes from.
I know.
We fully acknowledge this movie is not perfect. We fully acknowledge that there are stuff in this movie that is unnecessary and that ultimately have like a large bit of plot hole element to it. But I think the ultimate divisiveness comes from the fact that it's not the original. And that when you resurrect a franchise this beloved and it's not the original, there's going to be some clashing.
Some growing pains.
Yeah, there's going to be some drawback to that. I think any flaw in this movie was just going to be fuel for the fire for people that already didn't like the movie or already didn't like what the new trilogy was trying to do. Oh, it's too SJW. Oh, there are too many women in that's not realistic that she would be able to beat that guy.
Space doesn't have that many black people.
Right. Fucking a black stormtrooper? What the fuck? No. I think there were going to be people that didn't like the film. And ultimately, that's true for any movie, that there are going to be people who don't like it. I think the fervor comes from how well received the original trilogy was, and anything that changed or derived from that was going to be bad in the eyes of some people. And I think that the imperfections in this movie, even if there were just tiny imperfections in the movie, I think even if you made this movie as tight as possible, there were still going to be loud people. There were people that criticized that Episode 7 was essentially Episode 4 with new, with new effects.
Which is good.
Those same people... I won't make that generalization. Many of the same people then turned around and said The Last Jedi was bad because it was too different. And it's just like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't do both of those things.
Ryan, I can perfectly well eat a cake I have.
God damn it. Fine. You can't look left and right at the same time. How about that?
Damn, he's got me there. I haven't fixed my eyes yet.
It has to be one or the other. Unless you're fucking Naruto and have fucking shadow clone jutsu, you can't look left and right at the same time.
I appreciate that reference.
You're welcome. But I mean, I think the story, the trilogy originally set out to do something different. And they set out to do it in a very subtle way. They set out to do it in a subtle way that created gradual change. I think if anything needed to be done, and I honestly wouldn't have changed it, but I feel like if they were gonna change it, they could have changed it harder, just to let people know from jump this is not going to be the same trilogy. It's going to be something different. I think starting off from a very similar place in 4 has very good, subtle story benefits, but it set a lot of people up for expectations that they were going to get the same trilogy, and that's not what they planned on doing.
So you're going to find my opinion controversial, maybe a little bit, but hear me out.
Yes, please.
Hear me out. So I like Rian Johnson a lot. I think he did some great work, and I think that when he does get to his own trilogy, it'll be something special. I really do. I'm excited for it. I think, personally, I would have kept the same writer and or director combo throughout this trilogy.
Yeah.
Because the problem I'm having is you're having a different writer and director, he did both, for this film, from any of the other films surrounding it. So you're going to have a lot of things that don't quite line up. Now, I read that Abrams and worked closely with him to make sure things kind of went the way they were intending. The creative teams over at Disney, etc., etc. But I definitely feel like Rian Johnson's someone who can build a very fascinating world, but he needs to be able to build it from the ground up. And putting him in the middle of things doesn't really let him stretch his muscles the way he needs to. And I think having someone carry the torch 3 films versus 1 film and then coming back for another film is a stronger way to make a trilogy than to break it up like they did.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And so again, no hate to this director. I'm looking at his filmography. I'm not looking at his filmography right now. He did Looper, which I loved. He did possibly the greatest episode of Breaking Bad, Ozymandias.
Dude, Breaking Bad's some good shit.
Mm-hmm. Like he did the end, the last chapter, the last two episodes are the epilogue. But he closed out Walter White's story, and he's got another movie coming out, an original called Knives Out, that's going to be dropping on November 27th for us. It's already out for you guys.
By the way,
mystery.
You see a trailer for it yet?
Like that. Yes, it's fantastic.
It looks really good.
Great.
It looks really good.
So, I fully agree with Aaron here. It is absolutely not the fault of the director, but had they stuck with the same writer and director combo for all 3, I think the story, like the overarching feel of the story, the pacing would have been more uniform, and that makes sense to me.
With that, I'm gonna open the floor real quick, Ryan. Is there anything else we didn't cover? Because I took to hitting the themes and the broad strokes, but if there's any nitty gritty stuff, any character stuff, anything I missed that you want to get into, we can do it right now.
I mean, I'll keep it short. I think I think one of the best moments of the movie were also one of the most understated, because you spent like in the midst of the silliness that was Act 2, you had a moment with the children, and she shows them that they're resistance and they've heard of them, and the kids want to be a part of the resistance and they help them out, and then right at the end you see them telling stories of the legend that's being written as we speak, and then one young boy, we don't even know his fucking name. We don't know who his parents are. We don't know his pedigree.
Oh, I bet his parents are Obi-Wan Kenobi and some prostitute.
Oh, obviously. Yeah, obviously. Yeah. No. It's Ahsoka Tano and Boba Fett's kid.
Oh, right. Yep. Absolutely.
Fucking, but so understated, he just calls his broom to him so that he can start sweeping. I love that it was done without fanfare. It was done without a camera zoom. It was done from a pretty wide shot.
It was very subtle.
You had to do a double take to wait, did he just call the broom? Wait, what? And it really spoke to this concept that anybody can be a hero. Anybody can have the story written about them. Where you come from doesn't matter. The story is starting with you. You can learn from the past, but it doesn't write your future. And this young boy, this young urchin who's working in these stables, we just saw has the Force. What's his story going to look like? Does it matter who his parents are, or does it only matter what that kid is going to do with Tales of Luke Skywalker?
His mom is the Saj Ventress, and his dad is Jar Jar Binks.
You shut your filthy mouth.
But no, I agree.
Best Darth Lord ever. I'm sorry.
Sorry to derail you completely. I know, but no, I agree. I think that the message in that alone is very strong. I think the message that it's the message they bring up with Rey about her parents coming from nothing, or she came from nothing, and she's this great warrior because of how in tune with the Force she is.
It's fucking brilliant.
And I like that they're carrying it for this kid, and it's a twofold benefit here. One, it's a positive message to all the young kids out there who want to play Jedi and everything. You know, there's no longer can you be bullied by the other elitist nerds saying, oh, hey, no, you can't be a Jedi because you're black. You can't be a Jedi because you're a girl. It's like, no, bro, anyone could be a Jedi. It's just picking up this stick and thwacking you with it. But the other thing that is positive here is this opens the door for a shit ton more stories. Eventually, Luke is going to die. And by Luke, I mean Mark Hamill. Same with all the other actors. We have unfortunately seen one already pass. Eventually, all of the old guard's going to be gone. You have to evolve and adapt to new stories and stuff at some point. And with the Jedi Order being dead, and with the Sith always being down to 2 because they're idiots, eventually you have to realize these people come from something. The Jedi Order back in the day they couldn't have sex. Jedi were coming out of the woodwork from everywhere. How'd that happen? This all fits within the canon of Star Wars, but it's good that it's being reinforced here because it needed to be, I think.
It did. I mean, we've had a grand total of like 6 movies and however the fuck many books and TV shows that focused around is your last name Skywalker, and is your last name Solo, is your last name Kenobi, and to really drive home the focus that it doesn't matter what your last name is, it doesn't matter where you come from, like you, little boy, or you, little girl, have been given this power. It doesn't matter what your name is. It's yours. The story is in your hands. What do you do with it? I think that's crucial, because even though it was a little white boy, literally anybody could have been there. Like, that's like, it was a nameless child.
Even Jar Jar Binks.
God damn it, Aaron. I'm trying to make an uplifting point.
Sorry, it was there. I couldn't resist.
It could have been anybody, any small child, just right there with a broom in his hand, thinking about the stories of the people who came before him, not wanting to be them, but learning from them. Because that little boy's story isn't going to be Luke's. It isn't going to be Rey's. It's not going to be Finn's. It's going to be his story. And it will ultimately be informed by the people that went before him, but it will be his own. And I can't wait to see that kid's story. I can't wait to see Rey's story. I really pray to God that she's not a fucking Skywalker. I swear to God, I will be so mad.
Oh no, she's a cloud runner.
Yeah. But I mean, they set it up so well by just saying her parents were nobody. They sold her away for drinking money. They died in a pauper's grave on Jakku. They were never coming back for you. You're not like some destined, chosen person that was preordained and foretold would come and bring order to the... No, fuck all that. You're you. You have a power, and you have a desire to save others. What do you do? That's all it needs to be.
I like that.
I'm going to get off my soapbox now. Goddamn.
I don't think there's any other way to end that part of the conversation. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think this movie does a lot of good things, and I'm very disappointed that the discussion is regarding gender politics and everything, when there's so many other good deep things happening here that are kind of being ignored. Is it successful in 100% of everything it does? No. But I think it does invite interesting conversation, and I wish more films did that when they had this big a budget thrown around. So, that's just me. With that in mind, let's move on to the next segment, Mailbag. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, if you want to email us directly and all that stuff, you can reach out to us at Tumblr, Twitter, or Facebook to tell us your theories of Star Wars and why you think we are wrong, because I'm sure someone out there does. And maybe you can even tell Ryan and convince Ryan that, yes, Rey is the daughter of a lineage in Star Wars. It is Jar Jar Binks and Count Dooku. Anyway, please drop us the line at those locations on the social media. You can also reach out to us on our email. Ryan, what is that email?
That email is Misa called Ray Binks. Sorry. I had to get that foul-tasting thing out of my mouth. That is evacstation@gmail.com.
There's so many times I wanted to make that joke, and I was like, I don't want to deflate it any more than I already have. I feel like I've done too much.
I got it. I can only play the straight man for so long, you know.
Let's review this movie. Our standard is from platinum to shit and all the colors in between. Last time we did Force Awakens, I think we both put it at gold, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
So Ryan, looking back at everything we've done and looking forward to the future, where do you put The Last Jedi on this list?
This one actually isn't super duper hard for me. I think the movie has very high aspirations and it executed on a good portion of them, but I do think there are some unnecessary bits that keep it back from being like really, really up there. I'm not entirely sure how I would adjust the story to condense it and make it more streamlined, but I know there is a way to do it. So I'm going to give it a silver because it has high goals and it executes on a good amount of it, but not all of it.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I think silver's a good spot for it. I was always torn between gold and silver. It sucks there was a day back in the day I could have sworn this could have been in platinum, but coming back and revisiting it, looking at all the discussions and seeing all the deep back and forth theory discussions and everything, the themes and motifs, I could see the holes, I could see the flaws, and I could definitely see where there's spots where this could be polished up a bit.
I mean, the aspirations of this film are absolutely platinum level. They're absolutely platinum level, but there are things that hold it back.
Had Rian Johnson and his team done every backflip and landed on their feet every time perfectly, this would have been a platinum hands down. There were stumbles though, for sure, it's good to know that he is still moving on with his career and doing fun stuff, and I'm really hoping that he still does the trilogy that he said he was going to do, because I would love to see what he can do with a full scope of stuff to work with.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But yeah, silver for me as well. And again, anyone who wants to argue with that, feel free to. I don't think there's any argument this is better than most of the original trilogy, or the most of the prequel trilogy, if not all of the prequel trilogy. Without question. So
yeah.
So and that's basically where it is at this point. It's in the middle of the original, well above all of the prequel. So that's fair.
You know what I'm coming to realize?
What?
We're eventually going to have to rank not all 9 movies, but where each trilogy lands.
If we have time in the next episode, we might tackle that.
Be like, all right, so what's the best trilogy? What's the second? And what's the third? Okay, we know the prequel's already going to be the third. So, but just...
Well, obviously the top one, Ryan, is fucking Back to the Future. Okay, moving on.
Facts. These are facts.
Thank you all for watching, and happy holidays, and I don't know when the next episode's coming up for sure. A holiday schedule for recording is going to be a little weird because it comes out the 20th, and the day we record is the 24th, normally, so we might have to readjust our schedule to make it come out on time, but, I will keep you apprised on social media if anything changes. Expect it next week, though, if everything comes the way it's supposed to.
Excellent.
And until then, we will see you after the credits.
Bye.